Audi. One of Germany's most tech-forward, luxurious, well-made, and attractive automotive brands. It wasn't always known that way, though. In fact, you could argue that here in the States anyway, it's kind of a miracle the brand is known at all, and it's all owed to this car. Today, let's kick it into overdrive with the Audi S4. When the B5 S4 burst onto the scene, things changed for car enthusiasts across the globe. A German-made, all-wheel drive, twin-turbocharged luxury sedan became a thing. Before the S4 came along, if you wanted a fast, compact luxury car, you were stuck with a BMW M3, poor you, or something like the Mercedes C43 AMG. Again, rough life. Neither of those cars, though, came with forced induction, or all-wheel drive. And both of them labeled you either as A, a Euro trash boy, or B, someone who just took over their father's investment firm and exclusively uses an earpiece to have conversation. Japan didn't really make anything luxurious and fast, and America was building cars like the Taurus and the Lumina. Yeah, for those of us here in the States, this might shock you, but the B5 S4 wasn't the first S4. Now, I know, it not only seems like the first real M3 competitor, it kind of feels like the first Audi that anyone ever actually really wanted. There was another though. Let's roll it back to the 1980s. Audi is hurting, partially because they kind of have a reputation of being the poor man's BMW, or an expensive Volkswagen, which is exactly what they were, and they had a little problem with unintended acceleration. But that's a video for another time. By like 1990, no one was buying Audis. They had an ace though, their famous all-wheel drive Quattro system, which was absolutely dominating the rally world. And Audi knew a thing or two about turbochargers, something their competitors just didn't. So Audi decided they were gonna make a name for themselves by making a sports car for the people. They came up with the Quattro Coupe. It had a turbocharged inline 5-cylinder just like the rally cars. It came standard with the world-beating Quattro all-wheel drive system, just like the rally cars. And it was chock full of spunky, offbeat, underdog attitude. It was okay, but it didn't sell. In a stroke of genius, Audi decided to take basically that same car and put it in the body of a sedan. And boom, the S4 was born. Now, it was supposed to compete with the E30 M3, but the E36 M3 was just around the corner, and it was way faster. The boys from Ingolstadt were displeased with the fact that once again their competitors from Dingolfing were taking it to them. However, Audi was working on a totally new platform that was supposed to totally change Audi's reputation. It was based on the Volkswagen B5 chassis, and they called it the A4. The one we care about, though, is the car they built in 1997. They took the A4, reworked their V6 into a beefed up 2.7-liter lump, added 2 turbos, all-wheel drive, and a 6-speed manual. And it changed sports sedans forever. Finally, someone came gunning for the Euro King BMW M3 with adequate firepower. See, you have to understand something. Like I said in the intro, there wasn't anything like the B5 S4 coming from Europe, or really anywhere. It was a car that was full of technology, used a smaller engine with hot turbos instead of crazy displacement. It had a relatively complicated all-wheel drive system that allowed it to launch really hard and stay completely planted in the corners. The only thing really close was the fabled Skyline we were hearing rumors about here in the States. But whereas the Skyline was just a cheap Nissan inside, the Audi was pure German luxury. Yes, heated seats and rain-sensing wipers, but hell, you could get GPS as an option. Unheard of in a car that size at that time. Oh, and importantly, you could get it as a wagon, or an Avant, as Audi calls them. Most importantly though, it was faster than the E36 M3, which is why I owned one. And it's why I know for sure that sometimes you should never meet your heroes. See, I worked for Audi for about 8 years, and even getting parts at cost and obviously paying no labor, after just 2 years of ownership, the car had sort of started to lose its luster. I bought mine for cheap, $3,000 to be exact, with a bad clutch. And by the time I sold it on to the next owner, I had invested over $6,500 into it, and it kept breaking.
Classic.
Now, I don't want to bash on the B5 too hard. It is an amazing car. It's basically peak Audi-ness. And it's one of the best European cars ever built, as long as you overlook the reliability issues. So the B5 S4 came out when the E36 M3 was nearing the end of its production run, and shortly after, BMW released one of the greatest cars ever built, the E46 M3, a car that was reliable, had better performance, and between you and me, well, looked a lot better. Audi did respond with the B6 S4, but it wasn't really an M competitor anymore. See, gone was that beautiful twin-turbo V6, and in its place was an engine that sounded great on paper. Actually, it sounded pretty great in general. It was a 4.2-liter V8. And yeah, the B6 was fast and made a great noise, but at this point, Audi wasn't really touching M3 performance numbers. It wasn't really supposed to, and this is something a lot of people don't really understand because the B5 S4 absolutely did compete hard with the E36, but around the time the E46 was being internally tested, Audi actually introduced a new trim, the RS line, to be their really fast Audis, and left the S line just to be the mostly fast Audis. Think of Audi's S trim like BMW's M Sport. If you want an Audi that stands a chance against a full-fledged M car or AMG, you're gonna need one with an RS badge on the back. Anyway, the B6 morphed into the B7 in 2005, but it really wasn't much of an upgrade. It introduced Audi's new flagship wide-mouth grille to the masses, the interior was excellent, and it drove like a proper sports sedan should. But that V8 they were using in the B6, well, they kept it around for the B7, and it had some problems. The biggest strike was the timing chains, which lived on the back of the engine, like the transmission side. And if you think the labor involved is gonna hurt, wait till you see the cost of the parts alone. Yeah. The B6 and B7 aren't really cars to get too excited about. You can get one cheap, which is cool if you're willing to do a ton of maintenance, but truth be told, if the S4 is your thing and you're thinking about buying one, I think there's a better option for you. Starting in 2009 and lasting until somewhere in 2016, Audi did something that at the time was super un-Audi-like. They made a pretty bulletproof car, the B8 S4. It was lighter, it was faster, and most importantly, it was reliable. They ditched that problematic V8 and opted instead for an all-new supercharged V6. And I can make an entire video on this engine alone, but we don't have time for that here. What you need to know is this new V6 was direct injected, factory supercharged, and I regularly see them with well over 100,000 miles, and the undersides are clean enough to eat off of. Take that, BMW.
Oh my God.
It's fast, ferocious, endlessly tunable, and comes with the all-important Save the Manuals manual. And if you forgo the manual option, you get the excellent Audi S-Tronic double clutch. Can't go wrong either way. Oh, and it's like one of the best looking cars Audi ever made, with exception maybe to some of the cars they raced in Group B and IMSA, and the R8's not bad either. Honestly, I wish we could just end the video here because it'd be on a high note. But instead, Audi decided to make another generation of S4, called the B9, and it exists. Unlike the last car, the B9 has no supercharger. It does have a variable geometry turbo, which is fine, arguably better even, but it's no longer available with a manual transmission. Looks are subjective, but if you ask me, this last generation looks pretty vanilla. The interior, while things like the virtual cockpit and adaptive cruise control are really cool, it somehow feels cheaper to me. Capacitive touch buttons, A8 style digital shifter. There's just something about the whole car that makes it feel like kind of a snooze fest. And sure, it's plenty fast and drives beautifully, but it lost some character and attitude of the old one. Maybe I'm a bit biased since I remember working on B8s when they were still brand new, but time will tell. So that's the story of the Audi S4. It's a car I have a lot of experience working on, and clearly I'm definitely a fan. What's your favorite generation S4? What's your favorite Audi period? Thanks for watching this episode of Overdrive. We've got a new episode of this series coming out every Friday. Go check out some of the other ones we've already done. I think they're pretty good. Let us know what other cars you'd like to see covered. I'll see you guys next time. Oh, real quick, Go check out our blog at ideal.media and follow us on TikTok at idealcars. Bye!